Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of The Monster's Turn. We have gathered here today to talk about our Monsters Den summer vacation or vacations. We've all traveled to distant lands to go seek out films, not in English language, but in foreign languages from cool places. Everybody's picked two films that they have watched or that they know real well that are in another language besides English in the genres that we cover here on the Monsters Den. Each one of us will talk about these films and where they were filmed in and what we thought of them. But first, let me introduce the crew. We've got Mr. David Gallagher, speaking of foreign lands, all the way from Scotland. Hello. Craig Kaminsky from that foreign place called Pennsylvania. Even more foreign place, Ohio. Jamie Laszlo's in the house. And my two fellow New Yorkers on the panel, Mr. Chris Allo and Mr. Dan Brown. New York is weird too, right? So yes, some people call New York the most foreign land in the entire planet. But who knows? Who knows?
What's going on, fellas?
What's going on?
Good evening, all. How are we?
Good. Doing good. Ready to talk about some foreign films here today. So, Davey, you're going to kickstart us off with your first film. Tell us where and what the film is, and a little brief summary of the film.
Well, I wanted to go to Indonesia, but then Pete and I had a conversation about a future episode, and I cancelled my trip to Indonesia. So, unfortunately, I somehow ended up in Russia. Not the best time to be in Russia, but I was there nonetheless. For a really great movie that came out in 2020, Sputnik. Has anybody seen Sputnik?
No.
About it.
I promise you, all of you would enjoy this film. This is the best Neil Marshall film that Neil Marshall hasn't made. It's 100 times better than his modern stuff. So Sputnik is the tale of two astronauts who get into bother up in space and crash. 1984 Soviet Union. Crash landing, and one of the astronauts, we see the crash, looks as though he's dead. The other one severely injured, absolutely horrendously injured. Cut to a young lady who we find out is a shrink, basically. And she's going to be dismissed for being a kind of radical thinker by a very Soviet-type board of the secret police and whatnot. But she gets recruited by a colonel and taken to this secure camp where she's told, we'd like you to have a look at a patient. And the patient is one of the astronauts who was on the ship. And it turns out he's had an organism that's taken place inside him, or taken host inside him. And we find this all out very fast. It doesn't hold back. The organism comes out at night as a big creature, which looks a bit like the creature from Extro, mixed with a little bit of, the eggs in Alien when they first bloom, they've got that kind of stem thing. It looks a bit like that, only much, much bigger. But the creature comes out his mouth and then inflates by taking in oxygen. And it's a really cool looking creature. So it's a little bit Quatermass in the Pit. Sorry, just the first Quatermass experiment in terms of the astronaut and whatnot. But then it turns into Alien. There's a lot of Alien going on here where there's pure tension in terms of this one creature and how they can get away from it for some people or control it for others. So just like Ash was trying to do in Alien, some of them want to weaponize it. The scientists in the group want to utilize it to win Nobel Prizes and whatnot. Some just want to get it shot and get rid of it. But it's taken over the astronaut and become a symbiotic relationship with him. So I mentioned that he'd been really badly wounded, critically wounded. He's completely healthy, healthier than ever. And he's got an almost Venom-like relationship with him, very similar to the one that Venom has with Eddie Brock, but much, much darker. And it's a real great just sci-fi horror with great creature feature stuff, loads of cliches. There's nothing in here that's going to shock you in terms of, well, I've not seen that before. But it's just that rare thing of something being done ridiculously well by people who clearly know what they're doing. So everybody involved plays their part perfectly. And it's got that very particular Cold War aesthetic to it, that 80s part of the Cold War, the second part where it looked really dangerous in 1984, 85, that kind of period, Gorbachev and Reagan and whatnot. So it's got that kind of aesthetic to it. And that gives it a much more creepy tone almost, because we know that the state are also involved in this. It's all military. So this girl can't just go to the press, for example, or, spill the beans. It's all, everybody's on watch. It's just a ridiculously good creature feature sci-fi horror. So if you like Alien, and of course you do, and if you like Quatermass, and maybe you've not seen Quatermass, but believe me, you'd like Quatermass, with a little bit of maybe to throw in Neil Marshall, maybe Doomsday with the kind of military vibe of it as well. But yeah, just a ridiculously great film that just does everything exceptionally well. Doesn't break the mold, but sometimes you just need something safe and reliable. That's exactly what this is. I guarantee everybody on here would at least like it, if not love it. Sputnik from Russia 2020. So there we go.
That sounds kind of fun.
Yeah.
You had me at the creature from Extra. I was like, all right.
Yeah, it's got the long legs, or the thing, with the long spindly legs. When we see that part of the thing, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. Cool. I will definitely check that out. All right, Craig, where did you go?
Well, the places, the place where I went for my first movie, you're going to have to pack your suntan lotion and preferably your skimpiest bathing suit, because we are going to the exotic Isle of Sardinia, generally. So, and Sassari. The movie I chose was in Italian, and it is called 9 Guests for a Crime. This is 1977. And simple, relatively simple plot. The movie starts out. You have a young couple making love on the beach. Right away, we're getting to the good stuff. But a posse of 3 or 4 unseen men, you only see them from sort of from the head down or chest down, come and break up the couple, shoot the man, bury him in the sand. The woman is screaming, but right when the credits start to roll, you see a hand come up from the sand. So they didn't quite get the job done. 20 years later, an older gentleman, of course, with his new and hot wife, brings his three children and their spouses via sailboat to this beautiful island. It's very rocky, but it's the water is crystal clear. It's a beautiful setting for this type for where they go annually for their family vacation. Once of course the children or the man's children they're all they're not young. They're like well into their 30s, 40s or so, and of course all their wives are hot, and the men aren't satisfied with their hot wives. They have to go over to their brothers or sister. They switch partners like the whole times on secretly or not so secretly. But then right away, some the sailors that brought them to the island are killed, and the boat is sort of cast astray, and that they're stuck on the island. And one by one, the members of the family are being killed in strange and sneaky ways by an unknown killer. So it's a nice little mystery. Of course, you start to figure out what's going on a little bit as the movie progresses. But you've got all the women wear skimpy bikinis and see-through robes. So plenty of eye candy to look at. And again, it is a really pretty setting for the movie where they go to the beach, and it must have been something. There's like cannons and things, like it was an old war like an old castle or something like that. That's on the island, and so they make use of that. But slowly, the members of the family get picked off till you're left with only a few people, and the ending is pretty fun to the movie too. I won't give it away, but it's only about an hour and a half or so, and I think it's a fun, decent movie. I wouldn't say it's a giallo. I mean, you don't know who the killer is, but they don't do some of the tropes that you see in a normal giallo. It's not black gloves or taunting, phone calls taunting anyone or things like that. That's in my second movie. Oh, we're having a little switch around here, but anyhow, like I said, the ending is fun, and all in all, it's an enjoyable movie. So so it's have a fun time in Sardinia, fun in the sun with 9 guests for a crime. And this was from 1977. If I didn't mention that earlier. So fun movie.
I don't know what's going on with the StreamYard because it keeps it keeps showing the people dropping off, and then I go to put them back on, and I'm clicking and it won't do anything. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, everybody's here now. That's good. Cool. All right. Sounds like a fun movie, Craig.
It was.
Cool. All right, Jamie.
All right. I didn't know I was next. The line got out of line, I
guess.
I
was going by the original configuration, but it got kind of messed up a little bit here.
All right. For my first one, Grace has been wanting me to go to Kenya for about 23 years now. And the older I get, the more it sounds like a big pain in the ass. I don't like flying. I don't like the ocean, and I don't want to fly over the fucking ocean for a half a day and then be in another country for 2.5 weeks. And, I'm not in my safe spot, and I'm around people constantly. It just sounds like a terrible experience, but I'm going to have to do it eventually. So I went on this trip to Kenya. I asked Grace if this counts as my trip. She said no. So I thought maybe this would count. This is called Kati Kati. And that is Swahili, I was told by the wife, as it means the middle or middle. So you would think I would know a lot of Swahili living in this house. That's the first word I ever learned. So if I ever go to Kenya and they ask me how the flight was, where did you sit? I can say Kati Kati.
There you go.
2016. It's only 72 minutes long. Is it straight on horror? Yeah, but it's the best I could find from Kenya. A girl wakes up in the middle of nowhere. She doesn't know where she is and how she got there. She walks to a little lodge, like a resort, and there's some people there. And they're in good spirits. They're spirits in good spirits. They're swimming. They're playing basketball. And they say, well, you're here because you're dead. She doesn't remember dying. And this is 2016, and she actually died in 2013. So she was kind of just floating out there somewhere before she came here. She doesn't remember the life she had. And she meets the leader of the pack. They're all there for the same reason, but this guy kind of became the leader. And he starts seeing zombie-like images of himself talking back to himself. And it's all ghostly. He's all ghostly white. And you're like, what the hell? It seems, though, that when you start seeing things like that, you will be moving on to heaven or hell. This place is called Kati Kati, the middle between life and what you move on to, which is a kind of a good idea. So there's a big reveal at the end. I don't think anyone's going to watch this fucking movie, so I ain't going to spoil anything. The leader was actually the chick. What her character's name is Kaleche, and he is Thomas or something like that. And he was actually married to this girl, and he killed her in a drunk driving accident. and she floated out there for a couple years, and then she learns this as the movie goes on. And then how you move on is you have to let go of the past, they say. But as I was watching this movie, equally though, the past has to let go of you, and then you can move on. So he reveals this to her. She forgives him. He moves on. And it kind of ends with her now seeing a zombie-like figure of herself. And she's kind of the leader now, which means now that she forgave him, she can probably let go of the past and now move on to heaven or hell. Is it good? Yeah, it's all right. A lot of it's in Swahili. It's like half Swahili, half English, with, like a Kenyan accent. So you might want to use subtitles if you watch this, even for when they speak English. Would I have liked to seen a lot more chemistry with all those people at the resort? Maybe, yeah, because they're all been there for a while around each other. They would be getting on each other's nerves and things like that. And I would like to see stronger personalities bouncing off one another, almost like in an alien movie, when they're all stuck on the ship together and bouncing off one another emotionally. So, but it's not that kind of movie. It's like an art house movie in a way, elements of horror, a lot of drama, fantasy, of course. So would I recommend it? It's not out there for free. You got to pay $5.99. So is it worth $5.99? There's better movies out there for $5.99 to rent. So, but it was okay for 72 minutes.
There's probably better movies out there for free, right?
Yeah, that too. The next one was free, and that's a good one.
Cool. At least you got one of two that are really good. Yeah, that's cool. All right, Chris.
All right, my movie is a movie that I got a bootleg VHS of 25 years ago and never watched it. Then about 15 years ago, I got a DVD of it and never watched it. I was always convinced it was going to be shown as a late movie at the 24-hour horror movie marathon that we go to, and surprisingly, it never was. Davey canceled his trip to Indonesia, but that's where I went for 1981's somewhat infamous Mystics in Bali.
Oh, there goes my choice for October then.
Oh, sorry, Davey.
Isn't this the film that Scow was talking about at your party last weekend?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
This one is well known in the cult horror underground scene. Like I said, I've known about it for years and had it for years, but never watched it till I saw that it was on YouTube. And to be honest, it took me 4 tries to get through it because the first 3 tries I fell asleep. It is a fucking wacky, insane Indonesian horror film. I think it would play amazing with an audience like at the 24-hour horror movie marathon. But watching it at home, I did giggle a couple times, but maybe I was really tired. But it just it put me out 3 times. The plot is fairly simple. A lady anthropologist travels to Bali to research black magic. This guy takes her out into the middle of the woods at night, where they meet a cackling old witch who's all fucked up looking, and she convinces the witch to teach her about black magic, sort of like make her an apprentice. So the witch temporarily transforms her by detaching her head from her body, spinal cord and all, and on the spinal cord is all these different organs. And the lady anthropologist, now she's like a vampire, so it's this floating vampire head with all these organs down the spinal cord, and she runs around and well, not run, she floats around and attacks people. Like at one point, and I had to watch this scene 4 times because that's where I kept falling asleep. She goes into some house where there's this pregnant woman, and she goes in between her legs. And the first couple times I watched it, I just thought she was going down on the pregnant woman, and the pregnant woman didn't like it. The final time that I watched it and stayed awake, I realized that, okay, I guess technically she is going down on the pregnant woman, but she's sucking the fetus through the canal because the last time I saw it, I could see her pregnant belly deflating, and then the woman dies. That's what I was like, holy shit, this movie's more fucked up than I thought.
Wow.
But, the dialogue is insane, and I think that's why it put me to sleep. Like at one point, the anthropologist lady, she's there with the boyfriend, and she starts puking up like green bile with mice in the bile, like live mice. And the boyfriend comes over and he's like, wow, what did you eat last night? And it's like, oh, okay. Obviously, it wasn't fucking mice shit, pal. So that's the kind of insane dialogue. But it's nuts. It's somewhat fun. I think it would play great in front of an audience. But watching by myself, yeah, like I said, it put me out a couple times. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I'm glad after 25 years, I was finally able to watch it.
Yeah. Is it in English or
this one was in English? Yeah.
Oh.
That is, I mean, it's crazy. I literally had that as my pick until 4 o'clock. I texted you, Pete, my time, something like that, and said we should do a show about witches for Halloween. You said, yeah, that's a good idea. And I thought, well, I'll put that in reserve then. I'll keep Mystics and Valley. Nobody's going to talk about that. 6 hours later, Chris.
Sorry, Davey.
Oh, well, don't worry. There's plenty
of witches. It did take me 4 times, though, to get through it. I was like, holy Jesus.
But
the last time I was like, that's it.
It's just funny that Ryan Scow mentioned this at your Saturday. Party, and then when you said that you had mentioned it, I said I think Ryan mentioned that to Pete, told Pete to watch it. I said this is weird. I said I've heard the same thing.
Don't forget to watch that movie. I'm like, yeah, I will do that.
It's worth checking out. Just don't watch
specifics.
Don't watch it too late, I guess.
Proper witch as well. She's proper.
Yeah. Man, old school cackling. Like, oh boy, enough, lady. I get it.
Too funny.
Isn't also under the name The Witch with the Flying Head, or is that a Chinese?
It could be. There are a couple alternate titles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never her head that's flying. But regardless, there's a flying head with all the the lungs and the liver and stuff just floating around. It's just going.
If it's any consolation, I've had a bootleg copy for probably as long as Chris has had, and I've never seen it. So thank you, Chris, for inspiring me to finally watch it.
As Chris said, it's one of those films like Miami Connection or that kind of thing, Samurai Cop, that every cult movie fan just knows of. It's so up there with,
cool.
This is it. Yeah, it's a whack film. Yeah. Wow.
All right, Dan, where did you go?
Oh, I went to Mexico. Very far. I can get it with my driver's license and enhanced license, so I guess that's why I go there.
Don't drink the water.
That shows where I'm at. The first trip I went to Denmark, right? It's not exactly the land of horror films, but if you go back to the world of zombies, honestly, I always credit with Dawn of the Dead for re-inspiring the zombie genre. In 2006, Walking Dead came along, and by 2016 or so, we've been oversaturated with zombies and commercials and parodies, and The Walking Dead had its best seasons behind it, but every so often a little gem will pop up, and one in particular is Train to Busan. We've talked about that, but this one is a Danish film. It was on the IFC network, and it's called What We Become. And interestingly enough, it takes many cliches from any zombie film. If you're watching it, you're seeing many cliches in Night of the Living Dead, so whether it be a homage or inspired. Now, mind you, it was Denmark's first zombie film. This is 2016. So what happens is a small, very middle-class neighborhood in Denmark, and all of a sudden, there's a block party. And everybody's out there, and they're all neighbors, they're all professionals, this and that. And this older woman comes up to the couple that's nearby her, and she says, "I think my husband is dead." So they go over to the house. He died apparently in his television chair watching a movie. They go in, but he's not in the chair, and you don't hear about it ever again. For now, he's gone. So they think the old lady's lost her mind. So then all of a sudden, like a day or two later, this transpires over like 3 or 4 days. Next thing you know, very much in Fear the Walking Dead or any kind of apocalyptic film or 28 Days, the army comes in, they've got their scopes, they're making people stay in their houses, they're not giving them any information. The TV is scattered, what's going on. Every so often, the army, gives them like a 5-gallon jug of water and a bunch of like MRE meals, and that's it. And all of a sudden it stops. So the neighbors come from across the street and are crying, what are we going to do, this and that? Now, mind you, this is a Danish film, very much like Lars von Trier, or you want to go to Sweden, Ingmar Bergman. These movies move at a rather much a snail's pace for a while. And it's just this slow build and this and that. You don't see any zombies. But there's this air of creepiness about it, especially when at one point in time they have no supplies. They have to leave. The two gentlemen have to leave and go out into the community they're at and the surrounding area to find out what's going on. And you still see nothing. But you know something's horribly amiss. And you see everything's been abandoned trucks and this and that. Well, I'll put it this way. When they meet the zombies, when they finally encounter a zombie in a supermarket, all hell breaks loose. This happens in the last 15 minutes of the film. And it just goes bonkers off the wall. It doesn't end well. I'm not going to give too much about this because I think it is still on the IFC network. We get on Blu-ray. It's inexpensive. But it kind of caught me because when they leave the house, as slow as the movie is running, when they leave the house to walk around, the suspense builds because the fear of the unknown. What's out there? And then the shit hits the fan. And all I'll say is near the end, this image of this little girl, which is kind of inspired by Karen or the girl in Night of the Living Dead, little girl. This is an iconic part of the film. And it's kind of a slow burn, but for some reason I was entranced with it. And I watched it, and last 15 minutes, it just kicks into high gear. Not only overly violent, but just the angst and the suffering and what these people are going through to get out, and the fear of the unknown. Highly recommended. It ends rather abruptly, but it does tie it up. And you found out, I was doing some research, is that when they made the film, they ran out of money and could never finish the ending the way they wanted to. So they make this rather abrupt ending, which kind of works. But once again, worthwhile watch. Is it in the top? But it was one of the better ones that came out after 2015, 2016, because the zombie genre is pretty much defunct at this moment, I believe, in films until something else comes out. So there you go. What We Become, Denmark.
Cool. I've never heard of that. Not too shabby. All right, we'll go from zombies to Teddy. So this is I guess you can call it a werewolf film. So this was on Shudder, and this is, and I went to France to go check this out. So my first vacation here was in France. This film is about this, I guess he's early 20s kid named Teddy. And Teddy is a metalhead. You see that T-shirt that he's wearing? He basically wears that shirt throughout the entire movie, and he has a whole bunch of them. So every time you see him changing clothes, he puts on another of the exact same shirt. So not a lot spent on the wardrobe for Teddy in this movie. Teddy lives at home with his, I guess she's an invalid, his aunt, and another relative who they don't really explain who he is. Is he the brother of his aunt, which would make him his uncle? I don't know. They don't really explain that all too well, but the three of them live together. And Teddy is kind of like a high school dropout who now works as a masseuse in like a beauty parlor. And he works for this older woman who kind of has the hots for him. She's a little nuts. So he gives like massages and does pedicures and all that sort of thing. And he works nights mostly. And he's working to kind of take care of his family in their little crappy house. Well, at one point in the beginning of the movie, they talk about how a wolf has been kind of terrorizing the little town that they live in France and killing some of the local sheep. So one night while he's in his house, he hears like a wolf outside the house, and he goes outside to investigate. And of course, he goes walking over near the edge of the property where the woods are or is. And something jumps out and bites him in his back. So then for the next couple of weeks, he's got this wound on his back that does not seem to heal. his uncle or whatever just keeps telling him how stinky he is, and and why is it not healing and all this. But he's like, don't worry about it. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. And so for the rest of the movie, we kind of see how the next few weeks are kind of progressing. You still kind of hear about the wolf at large. Now there's more livestock being killed. Teddy starts to go through these kind of blackouts. He's got a girlfriend who is in her final year of high school. She's a little bit younger than him. And you see lots of dialogue between the two of them. He wants to go and build them a little house so they can have a great life together, even though they've only been dating for like 6 or 8 months or something like that. He's already got all these plans. Meanwhile, all she's worried about is graduating high school and going off to college and whatnot. There's some crazy scenes where he's in the beauty parlor, the masseuse parlor, and him dealing with customers, and he's just not a very happy kid. He's very rebellious and very, very much a loner. There's sort of elements in this movie of like American Werewolf in London as well as Carrie. So it's not the most original film ever, but what's kind of cool about it is as the movie goes on, you get to see him slowly starting. Obviously, he was bitten by a werewolf. No surprise there. So like there's this one scene where him and the girlfriend took some mushrooms, and they're tripping out. And then at one point she goes, can you go down on me? And then he does. And she's like, wow, that's the best ever and whatnot. And then after they're done, he goes into the bathroom and he looks in the mirror, and he's got literally his tongue has been growing hair. So he takes a razor and he's trying to shave the hair off of his tongue, which is like, I'm watching it like, there's another scene where he's got these gigantic long hairs growing right out of his eyeball. So he takes tweezers and he's trying to pull them out. And they show you the close-up of it. It's just like, whatever. But the whole kind of climax of the film, I'm not going to give everything away, but it's very much like Carrie, where the girlfriend basically breaks up with him. He starts to get, he basically almost kills the woman who owns the beauty salon, his boss, because she, like I said, she comes on to him all the time. He's kind of done with her. So they have this, in one of his blackout moments, he kind of puts the beating on her a little bit. But anyway, the town suspects him of that. He says he doesn't remember anything that happened that night. The girlfriend winds up breaking up with him. He doesn't want her to go. He's distraught about it. She's got this big party planned for her graduation in this hall, and the whole graduation night. Anyway, he winds up crashing the graduation party. You can obviously imagine what happens that night, and I won't tell anymore. But it's just it's an interesting little film, very well shot. The cinematography and the camera work is great colors. The actor who plays Teddy does a really, really good job. You kind of feel for him. He's really goofy and he's kind of funny looking, and the girlfriend's kind of funny looking. There's a lot of like kind of weird characters in this film, but you can see kind of like in American Werewolf in London where he starts to realize what is actually happening to him. The same kind of thing happens in this movie. He kind of knows that he's the one probably responsible for everything that's going on, but he doesn't really understand what's happening. In the end, the one thing I will say, if you're someone like me who really loves werewolf films, there's no big reveal of him as the werewolf other than some quick little shots of like his feet and his hands. That's really disappointing, but I think it's still a nice slow build of a film where you kind of do get into the characters and you do really feel for him. And it's kind of a downer of an ending, but I won't say any more than that. But yeah, fun movie. I enjoyed it. And kind of like Chris, I had to watch this in 2 settings because I decided to put it in 11 o'clock last night, and that didn't happen. So I had to get up really early this morning before work and watch the rest of it. But I'm glad I did because I did like the second half quite a bit. So Teddy, that's from 2020, by the way. We have a couple 2020 films here today. French film.
Wow. 2 movies where we're going downtown.
Yeah, I was going to say this is the Oral episode.
2 out of 6.
That's right. All right, Davey, your final one.
Well, I was also in Italy on my holiday. Didn't get to Sardinia, so I didn't bump into Craig, unfortunately. I was up in Milan, but I really want to recommend this film, and it's a difficult one because to talk about it and not talk about the real reason why it's so great is difficult because I'd need to spoil what's so great about it in the first place. It's one of those just trust me on this kind of movies. A bit like Spider Labyrinth that I recommended a while back, and then Pete said the exact same. Yeah, don't mention too much, just tell people to watch it. And it's Closed Circuit, which is an Italian TV movie from 1978. And you'd think, why is an Italian TV movie got its own disc from Severin? There's a reason. It's fucking phenomenal. So it's 3/4 of a giallo, and then 1/4 something else entirely. It's all set in a cinema. There's a showing of a spaghetti western, and a whole bunch of different people are coming to the screening. Just a regular day screening a western, and all different types of people. Almost comically, there's a couple of soldiers. There's a really old woman. There's a kid. There's a sociologist. There's a kind of floozy. There's an old glamorous lady. There's one of everything from Noah's Ark, right? So everybody under the sun has a type, and the reason for that is when they're watching the spaghetti western, when the film rolls, and the actor turns around to the camera and takes his shot direct to the camera, a person in the audience gets shot at that exact moment. So the moment the gunslinger on screen goes bang, a person in the audience dies too. So the police obviously get involved, and everybody's in lockdown in this cinema. And from there, the police are interrogating everyone. So it's quite a standard poliziotteschi Italian crime film with elements of giallo for this part of the film. And they decide we should do a recreation. We should recreate exactly what happened to try and jog people's memory. And when they do it, with police watching every angle this time, the same thing happens. And the person they have standing in for the dead person gets shot in exactly the same seat this time. The gunslinger at the camera, bang, and somebody shoots in the cinema at exactly the same moment. How's it happening? And that's all I can really say before I go into spoiler territory. It's a phenomenal last 25 minutes of this film that just makes you go, fuck, I have never seen an ending like this. You think it's a normal whodunit? You have never seen an ending like this. There's a film I could compare it to in terms of what happens, roughly, but even to do that would be to spoil kind of what happens or how it goes. But it's just so impossibly imaginative that please, if you're maybe making a Black Friday order with Severin and this is on sale, just bung it in your cart, because this is one of the most imaginative, brilliant films that I've seen in a long time. Came out this year from Severin. But yeah, I mean, it's got some favourites as well. It's got Flavio Bucci from Suspiria, Tony Kendall from The Loreley's Grasp, Giuliano Gemma from Tenebrae, and Rango. Just stunning stuff. I can't recommend it highly enough. If you like giallo, if you like poliziotteschi, and then if you like films that just go bonkers towards the end, just Closed Circuit from 1978. Can't say much more than that without spoiling, I'm afraid, but just take my word for it. Brilliant film, brilliantly acted, tight, really strong stuff.
I got to see that.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to go on the list.
Yeah, definitely.
That's good.
Definitely.
Nice. All right, Craig.
All right, from the island of Sardinia, we're gonna go a little bit now onto the mainland of Italy, where generally there's mostly two locations for this: the city of Perugia for the college scenes, and then Tagliacozzo is the name of the village where about the second half of the movie takes place. I've seen this movie before, but rewatching it just reminds me of just how good it is, and it's definitely one of my favorites of the genre. And that is, if Pete has the physical copy, that is 1973's Torso from Sergio Martino. Again, I've seen this before, but watching it again, it's just it's also one of those, might have been one of the early movies that I'd seen completely subtitled, and it is so enjoyable to watch, and just a fine example of a giallo. So even though you guys have seen it, perhaps some viewers have not, but a, a group of female college students in Perugia. Mostly you see them in an art, like an art history type class, but a couple of their friends are lady friends are killed quite brutally, and strangled and mutilated. And one of the girls' uncles. There's a group of four girls. One of their uncles suggests to leave town to go to his cottage in Tagliacozzo. So three of the four girls take a train to this cottage. The fourth girl, played by the luscious Susie Kendall, who is just beautiful in this movie, she drives there, and driving there proved to be a wise choice on her character's part. But while there, I don't want to give too much away, but while there, every male in the movie is kind of a suspect. They usually are do or say or act in a certain way that makes you think that person could be your unknown killer. And you see the again, there's strangling with a particular colored scarf that's being done. And at one point, the killer phones one of the four girls, and in of course the whisper voice saying, don't call the police, or don't tell anyone about the scarf that you saw, or anything like that. So you've got elements of that. Once they're in the village, one of the girls trips and sprains her ankle pretty badly. The local doctor gives her some sedatives, and she sleeps. While she's asleep, unfortunately, her friends her friends are mutilated, and she wakes up to see the killer actually sawing them apart. So it's for 1973, even though they don't show too much, but still, it's what's not seen is still pretty is still pretty graphic, and that. But it has some plenty of tension with the trying to stay quiet in the house while the killer is there, and elude him, or try to alert the villagers down below. That the cottage is really beautiful, and it overlooks the entire town from like a mountaintop. So very scenic, and beautiful. Look like it would be a nice place to stay, minus the serial killer that's there, but has a a good ending as well. And again, I think it's a good reason why this is a really well regarded film, and that it's kind of has elements of slasher movies in it as well, with the stalking and the subsequent mutilation of the ladies. But just all in all, just a really entertaining movie, and one I would also say, first, people who don't necessarily like to watch a foreign movie with the subtitles. This is I think is a really easy one to get to watch and enjoy, where the having to read it is not in any way difficult. So Torso from 1973. It's my second pick.
Great film. I love it. All right, Jamie.
Okay. Well, Pete, we did not plan on wearing Jethro Tull shirts, both of us. I just want everyone to know that out there. And I am sitting because I was out late last night, way late, drinking many White Claws and seeing heavy metal concerts. So I've been dragging all day. But my second pick is I'm going to Austria for this one. And not only Austria, but 1750 Austria. And it's called The Devil's Bath. And it came out in March of 2024, so just a few months ago. And there is your... I'm flickering, ain't I? Camera flickering. Yeah. So there's your poster. So what's this movie like? If you take my camera, maybe there's a short. All right. Take the witch. You add in a little Antichrist, and then put in a dash of repulsion, and you get this movie. Right off the bat, it feels like The Witch, without the supernatural element. So it opens. It opens with a woman taking a newborn baby and going to a cliff where there's a big waterfall and a big cliff, and she just throws it off the cliff. And she goes to church and confesses her sin, her murder, and then they cut off her head. And then her head sits up, her decapitated body sits on it like this wooden chair outside, and it just sits there with her head next to her. So we go to the main story of this chick who, well, here's the thing. These are like Christian women, and when they want to commit suicide, they can't because it's the worst sin in the world, and they'll go to hell. They find a loophole, and what they do is they go commit murder. Then they go to the church. They admit that they committed murder. I guess they do it to a small child because it's easy. I don't know. And then they're forgiven by the priest doing the murder, but then they're beheaded. So they get to die, but they get to be forgiven. So they don't kill themselves without having that unforgivable sin still lingering. I guess when they are forgiven and by the time they get their head cut off, you're like, no impure thoughts, no impure thoughts. You got to be clean. So, and I think this really happened back then, I was reading. And when we get to the real story, we get to this woman, and she does not like her life at all. She doesn't like the work. I always got the feeling that she was like, she didn't want to live in her time. She didn't want to work for milk. She didn't want to go out and get the fish. She wanted to go to a damn supermarket, even though she didn't know what one was. So she didn't know the life she wanted. She just didn't want the life she had. Then she starts to slowly go into madness. And we start to see like body horror. We talk about shaving the tongue. She takes a Jagger bush and starts rubbing it on her tongue. Then she's slowly taking rat poison, slowly like poisoning herself, and her skin is getting all nasty. And then her husband finds out she's doing this and he tries to gag her. And I swear to God, I'm thinking about it right now. I'm getting a little gaggy feeling. That scene is hard to, well, this whole movie is hard to watch. All right. So I was squirming around for quite a bit. And when you think that it can't get any worse, this movie with the body horror is the worst for me. It's the only time I ever turn my head during a movie. The last 10 minutes, she does something so horrific and it feels so real and it's so immoral. I almost wanted to turn my TV off. I'm like, I'm done with this. I'm exhausted, but in a good way. I was also having a lot of demented fun with it too. Like test me, see how much I can take. Give me more, let's go. And then the ending is, it's way over the top. It almost doesn't belong. But if that's what they used to do back then fine. I don't want to give too much away, but it involves drinking blood. Let's say the minimum. There's a lot more going on than that, but everyone is drinking blood and terrible things go. This movie is like, and there's so much atmosphere. The first half is very slow. but you feel like you're looking through a time portal to 1750. Everything's real. The lighting in the houses, the only lighting you get is the natural light from the windows and the fires, so it's kind of dark. The buildings look real. The people look real. You know how they sometimes film in a small town and they keep all the small town people as like characters to make it seem like a real small town. It looks like they went back in time and got people from 1750 and brought them here for this movie to make it more authentic. That's how it feels. So really well done. So there's mist and fog and all kinds of stuff like that. If it was possible to make a pot of misery, all right, you got a big pot of misery brewing, and you took the film they filmed this movie on, they marinated in that pot for about 5 weeks, and then took it out. That's the kind of movie you get. It's just drenched in misery. It's directed by these two people, Veronica Franz and Severin Fiala. Now, Veronica is 59 and Severin is 39. He's a dude, 39, she's 59. It's kind of weird. They directed 3 movies, so I was very intrigued to watch another one. So I watched this other one they did from 2019 or something like that. Oh, no, this one's from 2014, Good Night, Mommy. Holy crap, this is just as hard to watch. And it's amazing because and there's body horror in this too, with woman's lips getting super glued together and her eyelids and all kinds of shit. But that movie is so fascinating because it's 2 twins who are 10 years old and their mother. And you think for the first half, this mother's nuts and these twins got to do something about it. Then halfway through, you're like, holy shit, it's the twins that are nuts. The mother's fine. And it all just flip-flops on you. So there's one other movie they did called The Lodge. That Good Night, Mummy is on Amazon Prime if you have that. This is on Shudder, so you can watch it for free. The Lodge I had to pay to rent, so I just went ahead and got the Blu-ray. That's coming Saturday because I know I'm going to like it because I like these movies. So,
The Lodge is pretty good.
all right, cool. So if you like The Lodge, you're going to like these other 2, Pete. They are,
Okay.
yeah, these are right up your alley with the atmosphere and all that shit.
The Lodge is kind of like this, like isolation horror type of thing because they're like at that place all by themselves, and yeah.
Isn't that the other lodge, the Hammer Lodge with Riley Keough?
That's the
This
one
Lodge
I
is
thought. Yeah.
2020.
Yeah, the Lodge that I have is a fairly recent.
2022.
Yeah, I
Was
think that's
it
a
also
separate film.
Herman as well, The Lodge?
Yeah, I think it's a separate lodge.
It's a different lodge, different Water Buffalo members.
Right.
Yeah.
Raccoon Lodge. Right.
Mhm.
All right,
You know,
well,
you mentioned Jamie, body horror and whatnot, and in the film that you kind of compared it to in your opening, Antichrist.
yeah.
I went to see that in the cinema, and it's funny we've had 2 mentions of Lars von Trier tonight, and he's not a horror director, but it's the only time I've ever seen something happen on the screen and had to just walk
Yeah.
away for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I brought
Dealing
that
with a
movie
pair
up
of scissors.
a couple of years ago on here, and the way I demonstrated it was I got a stuffed beaver and I cut its head off. I said something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's something
But
that
it's not
happens with
evil.
a pair of scissors
Not that
that is the
kind of
most disturbing thing you'll ever see. And Willem
Yes.
Dafoe's manhood. Oh my god, it's the most. Oh, no,
It's
don't
horrific.
watch it, folks.
That's
Don't watch it.
horrific. It's a horrific movie.
I was an altar boy before I saw that film.
Oh, fun stuff. All right, Chris.
Okay, my movie, my pick is from Hong Kong, and it's a movie that I watched it on YouTube. This was a first time watch for me. I saved this in a to watch list about 2 years ago, and when I finished watching it, I was actually mad at myself that I had not watched it 2 years ago because I absolutely thoroughly loved this movie. It is trash of the highest caliber, and it's called Thunder of Gigantic Serpent from 1988, directed by Godfrey Ho, who's done lots of trash like Ninja Terminator and Ninja Commando. It's short and quick and action-packed. The plot's very simple. A bunch of scientists come up with this formula that can cause plants and animals to grow super large. And they're getting chased by terrorists. The formula is in a box and gets thrown out a window. A little girl finds it, and she has a pet snake. The little pet snake gets into the box and then grows to about maybe 25 feet long. And I think the snake's name, I don't know what exactly the snake's name is, but it sounds like Mothra. And she says the name Mothra about 500 times over the course of the movie.
Mosler.
Yeah, all right. So you've seen it, Davey.
Mosler, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't quite catch it, but this movie's fucking amazing. Terrorists and then the army are looking to retrieve the box with the formula. There's not that much snake action in the middle of the movie, but holy shit, there's car crashes, there's just tons of action, there's lots of shooting, people getting shot in the forehead, there's fist fights, there's kung fu. It's crazy. And then of course the terrorists kidnap the girl, and they must ask the little girl 20 times while they're slapping her, where's the formula? Where's the formula? And she's like, I don't know. But then the snake comes to rescue the girl. But now the snake is not 20 feet long. Now it's the size of Godzilla. And it's knocking down buildings and knocking down bridges. And it is completely fucking ridiculous and batshit crazy, but so much fun. I hope somebody like Vinegar Syndrome or Severin or somebody finds the negative of this and puts out a nice Blu-ray or 4K, because I will pre-order this movie in a second. You can watch it for free now on YouTube. I highly recommend it if you like monster trash like me, and it is Thunder of Gigantic Serpent.
No, Chris isn't exaggerating. The snake destroys a dam in that film. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the reason that I've seen it is I used to collect do you remember Wu-Tang Clan used to do martial arts films on DVD?
Well, that's the funny thing, Davey. It's on the, I don't know. I assumed it was them because there's 5 million subscribers, but the channel I found it on, it said Wu-Tang Entertainment. And I'm like, wait, is that the Wu-Tang Clan rapper? I guess it is.
Wu-Tang Clan are massive. Well, some of them are massive film fans. Like,
right.
I think it's RZA and GZA. But yeah, they licensed a lot of films. And they just put out the most bonkers stuff. And Godfrey Ho is one of those guys, like Leo Fong, who really needs a box set to really be celebrated as a kind of trash filmmaker deluxe. You're absolutely right. That would be something. A Godfrey Ho box set would just be.
Yeah. This movie is a fucking hoot.
Another one I got to see now today. See that?
Recommendations.
Got a few here. Always good. Do more vacations. All right, Dan, you're final.
Well, south of the border, after going up to Denmark, the country was moving too slow for me, so I figured I'd go to Mexico. And I don't have any toys to show you about it, but it was made in 2010, and it's called We Are What We Are. Basically, the story starts out in Mexico City, or a modern city. It was filmed in Mexico City. This disheveled middle-aged man is walking in an outdoor mall. All of a sudden, you can see he's not feeling well. He's a little disheveled, and all of a sudden he collapses. He starts throwing up bile, collapses to the ground. They take him away. That's it. Now you cut to a house where there is a woman, 2 teenage sons, and a teenage daughter. They're wondering where their father is. Now, one thing leads to the other. This is their father who collapsed in the mall. Come to find out, because they identify the guy as a man that would walk by and stare at mannequins. Okay? So the daughter finds out it's him. They go into a panic flurry. And the mother in particular, who looks kind of like an olive oil if she was on crack, sits there, and all she's concerned herself, she's saying, she goes, how are we going to perform the ritual? how are we going to hunt? How are we going to prepare the meat? So you kind of know where this is going right now with those three basic food groups. Cut to the funeral home, which apparently this man who died, a funeral home was going to bury him, so they're making him up. A fellow was a funeral director named Tito, I remember this name, or it's actually a coroner. He calls the cops because in the father's stomach, or the man's stomach, is a woman's finger with red nail polish on it. Obviously, he's a cannibal. Now, the big story comes up now is that the two sons are fighting over who's in charge, and the daughter are trying, how are we going to survive? Their father did everything, and they have to, apparently with the mother, she's religiously obsessed about, we have to perform the ritual. Everything is a ritual, candles, like voodoo type stuff. So it goes into this whole story when the coroner calls the police about this finger. Two kind of like lower level detectives, not really slackers for all that matter. One guy becomes obsessed with like, wow, we can get a promotion if we in fact find out who this killer is or what happened. It's kind of tongue in cheek, it's funny, and they go off on their merry way. This is where it just starts going off the rails. Okay, it's bad enough. This cannibalistic family, it's bad enough that they're dysfunctional as it is. Now you got to throw all the luggage at JFK at the holidays because they have so much emotional turmoil going on. There's so much infighting. Who's in charge? How would dad do this? They're going out, and the mother apparently is obsessed with prostitutes because the prostitutes killed your father. Your father always wanted prostitutes. We found out what she was upset because he was going out and probably eating the prostitutes and not the way she wanted to eat. And it's just, she has this obsessive thing. The sons go out and try to abduct a prostitute, bring her back. Okay, the mother just flips out and just bludgeons the woman in the head. They're not even going to eat the woman. So then she takes the prostitute, brings her back to the street corner where all the other hookers are standing, and basically throws the dead body there and says, stay away from my sons, stay away from my family. I mean, talking, it's just whack. Meanwhile, the two cops are getting into this. The son goes out to try to find some meat. He picks up a guy in a gay disco, brings him home. Meanwhile, mom has gone out as trying to pick up a man to bring home. So now they got like two people in their house. They're trying to kill them so they can eat them. Now, plenty of body damage, plenty of blood, but no power tools. It is all bludgeoning with all types of objects, just beating the shit out of these people. The cops come in to solve the case. It just turns into a rapid fire fucking gunfight, insanity. But I'm not saying it's in a bad way. This film is very dark, very tight. Feel the sweat, the grime, and just the whole malaise of this family. And they're crazy. And they're not as crazy as Hills Have Eyes type people, but they're crazy nonetheless. The ending, kind of a twist with an ending where they'll say the last scene is very reminiscent of the ending of Pearl, with that kind of demented look on somebody's face. The film was directed by Jorge Miquel Grau. This was his first full-length feature film in 2010. Okay, it went on to lead a lot of awards, and very successful in Mexico, and he's still working in the horror industry. He's done a few other films that have been released through Lionsgate and other formats. In fact, the Americans went off, and in a rare situation, they did an American remake 3 years later that does not take place in Mexico City. It takes place in a backwoods community. A couple of notable actors in there, such as Michael Parks is in it and so forth, and it's set in this very rural hick type setup. It's a good film in its own. It's not as good as the first one. The first one is just so dread and downbeat, a little sarcastic humor thrown in there, and like I said, no shortage of blood and gore, no shortage of bludgeoning people to death, and no shortage of food. But the interesting fact about this film, the trivia this is the 6 degrees of separation from someone, is that the person who plays the coroner or the funeral director by the name of Tito, okay, and the other guy with him are the same actors that appeared in Guillermo del Toro's Cronos, playing the same roles in Cronos. So it becomes kind of a 6 degrees of Guillermo del Toro. So it's kind of an interesting twist. I think he probably put it in there as a homage to Guillermo del Toro. They don't, he doesn't really talk about it, but this kid's going on to do some pretty decent stuff. The American version is okay. You can watch it for free on streaming. You can find it on DVD, reasonably priced, because I think it was also on, was it the IFC channel Midnight? It played a couple of years ago. And there is a Blu-ray that's out that is all region, but it's very pricey at this point. But it's a worthwhile watch. It just doesn't let up, and it's just creepy and slimy and greasy, gritty, and grimy. Glory.
Sounds good.
That sounds like a good one. Awesome. All right. Speaking of gory and grimy and all that kind of stuff, my last film here. We're going to go to Sao Paulo, Brazil, for the Portuguese film Skull the Mask, which is a Shudder original. And this promised to be a total throwback slasher gore fest kind of creature feature, and that's kind of exactly what it is. Not a hell of a lot plot-wise in this. Basically, this mask, the villain is actually called Skull, and the mask is this like ancient Brazilian artifact which gets unearthed and found, and a bunch of scientists get a hold of it, and it winds up getting stolen, right? I think the scientists had a feeling that there's something about this that's really special that they can harness, right? It gets stolen, and then it winds up, what happens is there's these crime scene policemen who stumble upon it from whoever stole it, and the mask winds up kind of jumping on its own onto the head of one of the crime scene guys, who's actually played by a Brazilian wrestler called Rurik Jr. I don't know if Chris, have you ever heard of him? I don't know who he is.
No, but I did see the Skull about a year ago. It's fun.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, it is a lot of fun. So basically, once the mask gets onto this big guy, he turns into this kind of like ancient killer who's got some kind of weird name. I forget the god executioner. It's like a Naga or a Hanga or something like that. Anyway, he just winds up going on a rampage. And basically he goes and starts killing people as sacrifices to the actual mythological god. And he's got, like, as you can see in the picture, he's got this like kind of like cleaver sword type of thing that he goes around and just starts butchering people. Basically, that the whole movie is him. Once this happens, the whole rest of the movie is him just rampaging all over town, just killing people. And there's limbs and blood flying all over the place. You got this female cop who's actually out to try and stop him. Of course, she seems to have more success trying to stop him than anybody else does for whatever reason, which is kind of strange. Not a hell of a lot of plot in the film, but it is enjoyable. And if you just want a fast-moving kind of Freddy, Jason type of thing where you got this one killer out there who just seems indestructible and he's just butchering people left and right, that's really what this film is all about. So I had a good time with it. It's no great piece of filmmaking, but I thought it was lots of fun. So I would highly recommend it if you just want kind of like take your brain out for an hour and a half and just watch some good old-fashioned slasher gory stuff. You could do much worse than this, I think. So
reminds me of the Joe Bob Briggs used to say on Monster, whatever it was called on TCM, there ain't a whole lot of plot to get in the way of this here movie.
Yeah, pretty much. It's well made. It's well made, and like I said, the blood's flowing. It's shot well. You can tell they had a little bit of a budget to work on this, so not too bad at all.
And you know that Shudder has signed a deal with Severin. Probably distributing Severin pictures.
Yeah,
Severin.
they're going to be.
That's great.
Well,
they put stuff from Vinegar Syndrome on there all the time.
Yeah. Vice versa as well, because I know that we get a lot of Shudder stuff on disc in the UK that you don't get over there. So you'll now hopefully be able to get them on the Vinegar Syndrome. You know, Vinegar Syndrome have got the partners website where it's all the different labels. The Shudder should be one of them going forward, so that's pretty good.
Yep, absolutely. So,
can I just add one thing real quick? I forgot to say. If you want to see Good Night Mummy, there is an American remake. It came out like 2 years ago with Naomi Watts. Don't watch that one. Make sure you're watching the 2014 original.
The original.
I started watching the remake. Now it's 10 minutes in, and I'm like, I don't think this is the right movie. And then I found out, there's a remake and an original. Okay.
Yeah, Americans rarely remake them properly. It's,
Correct.
Very.
Yep. So there you have it, everybody. All sorts of recommendations of non-English language films that you may want to investigate. What was kind of cool about this is, for most of us, we were actually watching a lot of these films for the first time, so that's kind of cool. And for those who have problems with, films in different languages, don't like reading subtitles, you might be missing some really good films. So maybe just give it some extra thought and give it another try. And a lot of good horror out there that's in other languages that you'll definitely want to check out. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Down in the comments, let us know some of the cool international, non-English language foreign films you've seen of late. If you're someone from another country who watches us and you've seen some really good English films of late, put those down there as well. So we know we got folks watching from all over the globe. So until next time, thanks for watching The Monsters Den. For Chris Allo, Jamie Laszlo, Dan Brown, Davey Gallagher, and Craig Kaminsky, I'm Pete Pardo. See you soon in 2 weeks here on The Monsters Den.